All right, well, I wanted to change it up on this episode of Intrapreneurship, and I wanted to bring a guest, a friend, somebody that you may have seen around the Valuetainment network, somewhere on the channel. You may have heard him or seen him on a story with Patrick. We travel together. You see the stories. You see us having fun, starting Valuetainment, then shut down, then come back, but doing a lot of different things behind the scenes. I have here Tom Ellsworth, a.k.a. The BizDoc. And before we get into an interview on Intrapreneurship, I want to tell you a little bit about Tom's background. You may have seen his interview with Patrick a few years ago, but Tom currently leads the corporate development and strategic initiatives as PHP innovates and disrupts the industry as part of the InsurTech and FinTech wave. 25 years of experience as a CEO, president, and founder with startups and mid-stage companies disrupting insurance, financial services, enterprise software, and mobile while generating exits transactions totaling over $1.2 billion. Tom has an MBA from Pepperdine University, a bachelor's degree in business administration, marketing from California State University in Northridge. He is my friend. He's a good man, a good father, great husband. Tom, thank you for letting me pick your brain on Intrapreneurship today. How are you?
Well, thank you very much for that. That's more of an introduction than I deserve. So really good to be here. Intrapreneurship is a topic that I know something about, and I'm really appreciative of the opportunity just to share some of this with you.
Absolutely. And Tom, we go way back. You know, this is going to be one of the shorter interviews we've ever seen on Valuetainment. However, I want it to be very punchy, direct to the point, because we kind of, I know you're busy. We have a lot to do and a lot to cover every day. But Tom, we got great CEOs out there. You know, we're hearing so many stories in the media, news, so many action-oriented CEOs and visionaries and prophets of companies. Why is a supporting cast and having that right-hand person, having a number two guy in the company, you know, why is it so important for a top CEO or high-profile CEO to have a supporting cast?
Well, you know, a CEO is not a dictator. And so if you're just a dictator and you've got like functional people, like a finance guy or woman, a marketing individual, a sales lead, if that's what you got and you're dictatorial, it's not really a supporting cast. It's like you've got it figured out and you run it. And a lot of family-owned businesses are run that way. You know, the guy that founded it is just driving it that way, and that's what it is. But if you want to scale a business and you want to really build momentum, you want to build a machine, then you need to build replicable systems that generate that momentum. Because you can, as I like to say, energy, enthusiasm, Red Bull and pizza until midnight. Yeah, you know, that'll get you out of the gate and get you some speed. But at the end of the day, systems will pass you. And when systems pass you, you're gone. And the only way to build real momentum with real strong systems is have a supporting cast of people that all feel that they're trusted and they're empowered and they drive forward. And that is where that CEO, founder, entrepreneur graduates over into almost like a military delegated leadership, and the momentum generates. So the supporting cast is always important. But what's even more important is what do you do with that supporting cast? Just dictating to mid-level people? It's still your business. It's still your plan. And you're going to carry all the burden every moment of every day. Or are you building empowered people that are structuring systems that are just repeated over and over again, and it generates momentum to the company? Now you're building a long-term play, building valuation in multiples, not valuation just on a little straight line, you know, being the dictatorial leader over some really good people.
I'm smiling because it's like already so much content and value in the first question. But Tom, can you expand, and Patrick would say unpack a little bit on when you say, when the systems pass you, you're gone. What does that mean when the systems pass you? Because a lot of what an entrepreneur does and a lot of what our job is to maintain order, maintain structure, try to hold the line, like I tell the guys, as much as you can. What does it mean when systems pass you, you're gone?
Well, think of it this way. You know, you go into a McDonald's and you may not realize it, but there are systems there. There are, back when we had paper and we were not just on digital and Dropbox and Box and things like that, you had binders like this that told you exactly what to do if you were a $9 an hour cook at McDonald's. This is our system. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, do it again. And when you do it and do it again, and by the way, the military is also very good at this. And that's life and death situation. You're out there defending a country, liberated country, military missions. Step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4, do it again. and the phrase with military precision gets knocked around. So when you look at systems like that, those systems are generating momentum because systems take time, take thinking, and take cost and compress all of it. So you don't have to think. You don't have to worry about the cost. You just do it. You do it over and over again. And then you stop sometimes, refine it a little bit, and then that's system 1.1, 1.2, and you do that again. So if you show me a business where the leader is empowering his supporting cast with systems for marketing, systems for sales, systems for product development, systems for product launch, and you put them at the starting line with this group here. And this group here is pizza and Red Bull. They're up till midnight, startup mentality, young, full of energy. They may get out to maybe even a faster start, but ultimately these systems will generate momentum and they will pass you and you will never see them again. They will be gone. It's like a momentum wheel. And I would look at that as like, that's what Microsoft did. You look at Microsoft, they had a great supporting cast. And once they had built their systems and they had built their platforms, then they were gone. Many, many examples like that. And so that's what I mean when I say youth enthusiasm and startup and pizza and Red Bull to midnight might get you out the starting gate and get you going. But ultimately, when systems builds up momentum and it's being replicated and driven, they will pass you and you'll never see them again.
That's phenomenal. Time, thinking, cost. And I like that you said when you refine them, that's when you get to 1.1. Unfortunately, sometimes some people have 1.none. And that means they just got to start and get going and get something, started. But I really love that when it comes to the systems. Now we can see why companies need that supporting cast to kind of start laying that foundation. I think people want to know, Tom, the next question here for you is systems building a lot of big ideas and big conversations. What has it been like creating those systems and being a part of building systems, working with Patrick Bet-David?
Well, working with Pat at PHP Agency, Pat built, systems for the company. And where we are right here, as a matter of fact, these were sitting up here. This wasn't planned. He built Blueprint. And so this was the system for operating the field. And then there was an agent selling guide. So this was the details of being a professional life insurance salesperson and making the right policy decisions, product decisions for your mom, your aunt, your uncle, that you're going in, you're trying to give them this financial product that's going to cover them at a great moment of need. And so Pat had systems built, for the field organization. And he will tell you himself that for the back office, it was a startup and it had great people and there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm, but they were going to need systems back there as well. And this is where Pat will tell you, it's like, hey, Tom, you built systems for some large companies. I need systems in the back office because there's nothing I don't know about the field organization, my commission plan, my hierarchies, my compensation grid. I'm best in the industry. I've got my playbooks. I'm all set to do it. Professional insurance selling and the blueprint for how to run a great PHP office in the field, recruiting people, bringing them in, training, getting them licensed, A to Z. He had all that. But he says, now I need a back office I can depend on. And if I'm going to drive the field and build the momentum for my company, I need someone to help me build these systems in the back. And there were some great people. And when I walked in, I found what I thought was marvelous raw materials, marvelous. And they were driven and they knew what they were doing. But it's like, okay, we can do it that way for 500 policies, but we can't do it that way for 5,000 policies. We're going to have to build some systems and refine this a little bit because we can't do it manual like that for 5,000 policies. We can get away with it and do 500, even a big closeout, meaning closeout at the end of the month where you're gathering up all your policies and making your month's total like so many companies do these days, closing out a month, closing out a quarter. Maybe we could do a closeout and get 1,000 of them done. But beyond that, we're going to break. We're not pizza and Red Bull till midnight. Suddenly we're 3 nights in a row to midnight. We don't get the month close until the 5th of the month. Can't do that. And that's a perfect example where what it was like to work with Pat. He's like, hey, what do we got to do? What do we need to do in the back office to make it go, to get people licensed as agents, to get people through the system so that the applications coming in are clean and we can process it. How do we sell more annuities and a good blend of life policies, and then have all of that, nicely segregated in the back office, get processed. So it was really, it was a lot of fun, and there's a lot of excitement working with Pat, because you don't run into many companies these days that have one part of it humming so well. His front end and the recruiting and the building and the field offices and the sales side of it, it was moving. He had incentive programs, contests, his own personal mentoring with leaders that were building large hierarchies of multiple offices. That was all done. It was like, oh my gosh, when they throw all of that over the wall, we better be able to catch it and process it. So it was really exciting to work with an organization like that was so tuned and focused. But now we got to deliver on the back end. It means we have to build systems to do that while we're serving the field. And I would say three things. It was very exciting. But it was very humbling at times. We had to sit there and say, this isn't working. We have to be honest with ourselves and find an even better way, an even more intricate system. And so that part is very humbling, where you don't just sit there with your ego, go make it work. No, you got to go to system 1.1, because you're outgrowing system 1.0. And it doesn't mean 1.0 is bad. It means you've reached a time where you need to refine it to do even more. When you take a look at Uber, running 3 cities, their initial 3 cities, which was San Francisco, and I believe they expanded to San Jose and Sacramento. I think that was how they expanded at first. So the software and all the back end and the customer service, everything to do that, to check out drivers and check out cars. What do you think that was like for those 3 cities? Then you launched in Los Angeles, way over there. Not down the street anymore. And then you launched in Las Vegas, way over there. So now you had to build your systems to get drivers reviewed so that we've got a safe driver, get cars inspected, and suddenly their systems go up. So you look around in entrepreneurial companies and startups, they face the same challenges that PHP did. You're going to break your old systems. Doesn't mean they were bad. It means it's time to either build a better 2.0 or to refine it. Your original question was working with Pat. I think it's been very fulfilling. It's been very exciting. And, a whole library of career experience I've had was brought to bear here just to help make PHP, from my little corner of it, a success.
That's awesome. And I love how you share your experience. A couple of things. You've mentioned to me an analogy about finding the needle in the haystack. Can you mention that analogy real quick?
Finding a needle in a haystack.
You've talked about the haystack getting bigger and it's harder to find the needle. Is that kind of what you're saying here with the system kind of expanding and things getting out of your hands? Can you just unpack that a little bit?
Yeah, exactly. Think of your business in terms of transactions. Anybody watching this, just think of your business in transactions. You sell something to somebody, that's a transaction. So here you've got, the back office of an insurance company, and as you go trying to identify the root cause of problems, it's like finding a needle in a haystack. Well, that's not a big deal if the needle in a haystack is just in a little cup on your desk, like a bunch of paper clips. You can find the one bent paper clip in there. But now, what if that is a box, 3 foot by 3 foot by 3 foot full of paper clips, and you got to find the bent one? So basically, where I go with that is, when you identify a problem, the bent paperclip, you got to go in and make sure that your system is addressing it right that day. Because if somebody puts a Post-it on their display, or it's a little note, or only this one person understands that, and that's how you fix the needle in the haystack, pretty soon the volume of transactions, the size of your business is going to grow up, and now you're sunk, because you cannot go through life scaling a business where one person's got a bunch of Post-its. If this happens, this, if this happens, this, if this happens, this, and the one person that understands all that, because he or she's been with you for 5 years and they understand that. So when you have issues, and you need to, especially from an intrapreneurship perspective, that you're building something maybe brand new in a department of a large company that told you, We're going to give you a little budget. We're going to give you a couple of people, but you're going to work yourself. And you're going to build something new inside of our organization. True corporate entrepreneurship. Man, when you get time to scale it and you're trying to scale it and you can no longer find the needle in the haystack, you're sunk. So each step you take, you have to systematically solve problems in a way that a new person could sit down, look at the playbook, and solve it tomorrow.
That's phenomenal, Tom. That's phenomenal. Look, at Valuetainment, we take a lot of pride in not just being generalizing content. Let's go a little deeper. Working with Patrick, what I'm getting from it, and obviously you and I both have several years of working with Patrick. We've seen he's a high-profile action. He's really good at asking, what do we need? What do we do? Tom, over your career, where have you seen CEOs get it wrong? Why do companies go out of business? Why are some CEOs, they look good on the outside, they speak really good, they do motivational speaking, they're starting social media, they got the perfect smile, perfect background, great, a lot of money in the bank, but then they lose everything. Their teams leave them. The company flops. Where do some CEOs get it wrong when it comes to the topic we're covering here?
Well, I'll give you a couple examples. In one, 3 years ago, I did a case study on Blockbuster. This was Blockbuster Video. And what was very interesting is when I was at GoTV, we were one of the first organizations that actually got video on cell phones. That was very primitive. It wasn't 4K or HD, but it was basic video. And we built like a very simple little encoder, and we worked with Sprint, we worked with Verizon in the United States. And I was looking at content and I said, why shouldn't movies be on cell phones? So I went to speak to Blockbuster. And there was a CEO there named Jim Keyes, and who's a very nice guy, very friendly guy. You would say he's a good CEO, but they completely missed what was going on with Netflix, that they thought, well, Netflix is just a mail order. Remember the Netflix? You used to get the mail, a little white envelope that had your DVD in it. So you'd watch another movie. You could put your list on there, and they would automatically send one when you sent it back. And so Blockbuster just said, well, the competition there is it's just mail order Blockbuster. That's what Netflix is, mail order Blockbuster. And then came the time when Blockbuster said, you know what, we're just primarily going to be a streaming company and we're going to do subscription. Completely changed the game. So suddenly they didn't have to mail anything. They could, on their computer, get it right now. And I went and spoke to them because I said, hey, we're on the mobile side of life, and they said, the wireless carriers will never do that because data will be too expensive for the consumer. They'll never do it. I'm like, well, I would know something about that because when I was at Sprint, I built the rate plans that put, long distance roaming and voice and text all together in one price. And we blew the lid off the market because people appreciated being able to get a phone and one price and know what their wireless bill was going to be. My wireless bill is going to be $50 plus tax, something under $60. I can depend on it as long as I don't go over my minutes of voice, but everything else, I don't have to worry about being nickel and dime. And I explained that to him. I said, you're talking to somebody who has already walked that path, we've changed it. And delivering data is going to get less and less expensive. And if consumers want to buy a nice big data plan and watch movies on their phone, the wireless carriers are going to eagerly let them do that as long as they pay for the data. And they said, well, no, the data will be way too expensive. I'm like, you don't understand. What the data price is now is not going to be the data price when we get to 4G and LTE. Remember, this was 4G and LTE. It wasn't even 5G. You can see on your phone, if you go into some rural areas, your phone will still bounce back into LTE.
Right.
Well, at the time, I walked out there shaking my head and I said, you know what? They still think that renting a video is putting the DVD in the hand of a consumer. And they still think that Blockbuster going streaming is maybe it's a competitor, but they're not taking it seriously. And I just walked in talking about an opportunity for mobile. And, Jim Key's team was like, nope, we're not going to do that. And I really shook my head and I really wondered about it. And we all saw what happened, And so that example is an example of a CEO that is not reading the competitive landscape. there's a lot of reasons that CEOs blow it. And let's leave out financial fraud. Let's leave out like Les Moonves, yes, because of Me Too. And he was just hitting on all kinds of people that were there. Let's leave all the bad behavior out. And let's just look at a good CEO who's a very focused, polite, driven man or woman driving an organization that doesn't have any of those kind of issues. And missing the competitive landscape is number one. And number two is missing it on what your customer really wanted in the product. Well, we know what the customer wants, and we're going to do it. But I see those two issues a lot, especially today when the speed of digital and the speed of iterations and product generations is so blooming fast. You got to watch the competitive landscape. In the case of Blockbuster, maybe they were protecting the fact that they had thousands of leases across the United States that they couldn't get out to, get out of. And so they had leases on all these locations for all those storefronts. And they're just saying, we have to make it work. We can't get out of the leases. Maybe it was that, but they still missed the strategic window, and the train goes by, and Netflix destroyed them. And then Netflix faced competition from Amazon Video, Vudu, which was built independently and then bought by Walmart. I don't know if you know about Vudu, but Vudu is out there like a Netflix, and they were bought by Walmart. And now Walmart's got a streaming service called Vudu. And so,
Tom, let me ask you a question on that. Do you think that a strong group of entrepreneurs that are thinking about protecting the company, thinking about vision, working on themselves, bringing value, just learning about the landscape, do you think they could have helped give counsel to that CEO at Blockbuster? You think they could have helped that situation? Or is there some point where there's a line between ego or decision-making that supersedes them?
Yeah, I think there's that line. I think your question actually makes a good point. There is that line. Looking back, I think if I had been in the position at Blockbuster that day, not looking back from today, that day, I would have asked myself, what is this little startup company doing, asking me these questions? And looking at the competitive landscape, why don't I acquire that little company?
Interesting.
And these people that are thinking this way, and make a division in my company dedicated to forward streaming. And don't let it be corrupted or held back by any of my current team and their thinking. And then over here, we got to figure out, what do we do with the stores? How do we get there? This is really hard to do when the stock market wants a quarterly report every 13 weeks. And they don't want to see you do this. And you're saying, well, I'm going to dip because the old business is going to get hit, but then I'm going to come back. This has happened. Companies have done that. They've dipped and come back. So I think that, what would I have done? Looking at the strategic landscape, I probably would have bought Good TV.
That's amazing. Just to think about Blockbuster buying Netflix, imagine, it'd be Blockflix. No? I don't know if that makes sense.
Blockbuster had a chance to buy Netflix.
Pretty amazing.
Not a lot of money.
Pretty amazing. I'm known to have the one-liners here. Tom, let me transition here into, you were a CEO at one point, so we're talking about CEOs. We've talked about supporting casts. We've talked about where CEOs get it right, wrong. At one point, you were a CEO. You've had a lot going on. You've done very well in your career. How did you know or decide? What were some reasons that you realized you woke up one day and said, maybe I want to move away from CEO. Maybe I want to take a step into a different lane in my career. Maybe some people would say going from number one to being number two. Not number two as you can't be number one, meaning the behind the scenes, the backup, the supporting cast. When did you know? What signs were there that helped you realize? Because some people battle with it. Even till today, I know I did. When I got started with Patrick, I'm like, am I supposed to be here? Should I sell? Should I go here? Should I go there? How did you know? What were some signs?
Well, it wasn't a no, and it wasn't me saying, oh, I'm not a very good founder, I'm not a very good CEO. I think I was a very good founder. I think I was a very good CEO. And I took a publishing company from 0 to 60, as they say, and then sold it to, a major competitor. I looked at that, but what I really looked at was fulfillment. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of my personal career, which is I'm going to leave you better than I found you. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of that, building teams. And because I was a founder and I was a CEO, I've had conversations with many CEOs and founders and said, well, I've been where you are. Have you considered this or have you considered that? Or I start asking questions. Can you tell me a little bit more about this, about this, about this, about this? And they're like, those are really good questions. Where are you coming from? Well, I was a CEO and I was a founder. And I think I know a little bit about what you're feeling right here. Maybe not exactly what you're feeling, but I got a pretty good idea. The stresses and everything that go with it. And so I realized that, I just got a lot of fulfillment out of teaching. And it wasn't like, I'm not a number one, I'm going to be a number two. That never crossed my mind. I don't think when you're competitive and you're driven, I don't think those kind of things really cross your mind and change that. I think you look more at perspective and fulfillment. And I get a lot of fulfillment out of building teams. I get a lot of fulfillment out of calibrating. And I also get a lot of fulfillment out of bringing solutions back to founders, CEOs, and say, hey, what do you think here? And they're like, it seems like exactly what I need. I said, well, look, I wasn't born with this information. I asked you information, asked you questions about your business, and I've kind of walked in your shoes a little bit. And so maybe that's why my suggestion here is well calibrated with what you need. So I discovered that I just got a lot of fulfillment out of building those teams. And part of that fulfillment is knowing that I'm about to make that CEO really happy. And his business is going to increase in value, it's going to scale, and it's going to move forward. That gives me a lot of satisfaction. And it's right down the middle of, I'm Tom Ellsworth The BizDoc, and I hope I you better than I found you. That is exactly how I approach that. And I found that I can get a lot of fulfillment out of that, helping people build that structure while they, with their vision about product or market, all CEOs come with one of those. That's why they founded the company. Let them run. Keep crap off their desk. Let them run. And they're so happy that they're able to run at what they do best. And now they've got a lot of structure and scale supporting them underneath. Everybody wins.
Phenomenal fulfillment. What a big deal. I love that you said building teams and finding that fulfillment and that experience. It's almost like because you were there, what you want the CEO to experience and the company to experience. And it's almost like if you've been in sales or you were a CEO, you have an edge. That's kind of cool. Let me ask you a question with that, Tom. You gave a speech recently, a couple years ago, and I was watching this, loved your speech at the Crowd School of Business. If you haven't seen it, go to YouTube, Crowd School of Business, Tom Ellsworth. Great speech Tom gave. But you talked about finding triggers with people when working with them. And as you talk about building teams and how you love that fulfillment and the experience of building those teams, why is it important to find triggers when developing people? What does that mean?
Well, you find the things that trigger people. That's what you're asking about, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So you find the triggers for people, or you find the triggers for the organization. And, you need to really understand, now it's almost like a bad phrase. We see on the nightly news, oh, that politician was upset. Oh, because he got triggered by something this person said. Well, I was looking at it, before, this is before elections, before these cycles. And it's like finding the triggers that are going to make an organization go, and then finding the triggers in the people that make them go, and then you got to align the two. And so you got to boil it down to what are those points and elements that will cause an organization to gain momentum. Let's take PHP, getting an agent licensed and getting them paid that first time. Their eyes are opened up. Wow, this is a lot more than $7 an hour. And now what you've triggered in them is they were trusting you to go get their studying done and get their license test taken with the state in which they live. And now they have been triggered of, now I get it. Now I'm going to drive. So they trusted you to get here. Now they're holding that first check. They've sold a policy to their aunt or someone. And you see what that trigger is. Well, now you have a trigger for a person that's going to motivate them to go. But then you also have, what are the triggering points that create organizational momentum? And in this case, it's every time you add an agent, the PHP agency, you're that much more value because each agent is a little engine of sales. They're human, they're people, they're building things up that at the core for the organization, they're an engine of sales. And so understanding the triggering points is key because you can't focus on everything at once. What are the triggers that I need to focus on that make my company go? And then as I put people in places, what are the triggers that make them go? And it's more of an art over time that you have to learn.
I love that. I love the idea of finding the triggers in an organization and people and aligning them. That's so cool. When you and I talked about marketing at one point, we said we had a compass of serving the field, moving the numbers, leading the industry. And we were aligning what are the knobs that we have to move. I love that. Tom, in managing people, in managing yourself, in leading as an entrepreneur mentality, being a supporting cast, how do you manage your own ego as an entrepreneur? Because sometimes it's a lot of being behind the scenes, a lot of suppressing our own individual agendas for the betterment of the company. How do we manage ego as entrepreneurs?
Mario, I think that's a great question. How do you manage your own ego and what you want to develop when you're looking for an entrepreneur? Well, the first thing is you need to tell yourself when you walk into work for an entrepreneur, it's our company. It's their vision. This is their show. And they're going to pay you for your services for 1 year or for 1 decade or longer. And so one of the things you do is you have to consciously leave your ego at the door. Or if you've got larger fulfillment or you want to be a CEO or a founder someday, then that plan needs to be on your desk at home. And you don't sacrifice what you're committed to do for this entrepreneur for that plan. You say to yourself, I'm going to watch him or her. I'm going to learn everything I can. And that's going to be part of me someday, 10 years from now, I'm going to start my own company. You got to set that aside. But when you walk in to work for an entrepreneur, you have to commit yourself to 2 things: the success and value of that company and keeping the entrepreneur in the lane where they add the most momentum and value to the company.
Wow.
So let me explain that.
Powerful.
So you come in there and say, hey, what does the CEO do that adds the most momentum and value to this company? Find out what those are. CEOs come from 2 areas: product and business development sales. The reason I say that, I don't know a lot of CFOs that have founded companies. Yeah, maybe some in fintech, but I don't know a lot of CEOs that have done that. I know a lot of CTOs that have founded multiple companies. These guys are product guys that have a new product idea every 12 months, about a new company. So the first thing is, what does the CEO do that adds momentum and value to the company? He's the product guy. He's the business development sales guy. Okay, what's on his desk that is a pain in the neck that shouldn't be? Because there should be financial reports and a good financial person explaining them. And not explaining how to make the reports, but giving the CEO the reports they need. There should be a marketing plan that's buttoned up. There should be a variety of product roadmaps that are buttoned up. So those need to be buttoned up and tight. And if there are extra issues or the finance plan is a mess, the marketing plan is a mess, the product roadmap is a mess, and all those things are coming up to the CEO's desk, then wherever you are in the organization, it's, wait a minute, our CEO is the product and vision guy. How do I help get things off his desk that shouldn't be on his desk? And if it is a marketing plan that's got 50 pages and he's being asked to make decisions about it, he or she, no. How can you influence somebody tightening that up to a 10-page marketing plan that's tight and done and ready to go? Because now you're not asking the CEO to process and figure out the marketing plan. They're staying in their lane on product and vision. And then ask yourself, okay, now that I can see all this, what can I do to add momentum and value to the company? You know what? I can be this marketing person. I'll make sure that the marketing plan is tight and that it never takes more of the CEO's time than he or she needs, and then they can rock. But when you walk in, it's how do we keep the CEO in the lane where they add maximum value and momentum to this company? And then from where I'm sitting, how do I add maximum value and momentum to the company? And along the way, you may have an ego. I could do this. I could do that. You got to keep that aside. Wait to 10 years from now where you politely leave the company, go start your own company, and then see if you're even good at it. But for right now, you should be all about adding momentum and value to the company, period.
It's phenomenal. Phenomenal. It's a lot of a servant mentality, a lot of, you're so busy thinking about making them effective that it's almost like you couldn't even have time to think about your individual. It's just phenomenal. Tom, you do a lot of case studies. You study companies. You do so much research. I see the effort. You do the board. Then Brooke comes in, and she does her own take on it. It's phenomenal case studies. When you do a case study, Tom, what do you want people to gain from that research? And when you tell those stories, what do you really hope that people get from these lessons that you're telling on different companies?
Two things. I want them to kind of see the story of the company and just understand how hard it is to build these companies. So if every week I can share all the financial investment points I put in there, when they got venture capital, decisions they made, I want them to see the story of the company and sit back, point one, wow, building a company is not easy. I can see how that company did it. And then second, I always try to build up lessons that I want them to take away that they may not see in between the lines of this company, but that are there. I'm sitting here in the studio right now, and you can't even see it. The other side over here, I've got the board here for Cheesecake Factory, which is coming up in a few weeks. And during COVID, they did a really, really good job of doing one thing. The objective wasn't fill the restaurant with customers. The objective was feed the customer. And they did a better job with takeout than any other restaurant chain in America. And as a matter of fact, this will blow you away. During COVID, they doubled their takeout to like $3 million per location from $1.5 million. So in other words, in 2019, they had about $1.5 million in takeout per year per restaurant. 2020, they had $3 million during COVID because their objective was feed the customer. So I want people to see the story of Cheesecake Factory and see this is hard work. And then they see the lesson. And the lesson is sometimes plan B can be pretty successful. And so that's an example from Cheesecake Factory, the two things I want people to get. I want them to see the story, and then I want to see them see a few takeaway lessons that maybe they could apply to themselves. And you've heard me say it. Whether you're operating a technology company here in the United States or a t-shirt company in Berlin, I always say that during the case study to draw parallels between a very, very simple business and a complicated business. Yep. Show them, hey, I hope the story inspired you, and I hope these lessons, I hope maybe one or two of them are applicable for whatever you're doing.
That's phenomenal. I love that. And I enjoy the case studies. I mean, obviously, we've built the segment out together back when we started, and then you've just ran with it in a lot of momentum. If you haven't already watched it, watch the case studies. Tom, benefits of being an intrapreneur. What are some things that if we were sitting down together and somebody's saying, yeah, Tom, I want to go all in, I want to give my company everything, but how do I know they're going to reward me? Are there really benefits of being an intrapreneur? What would you say over the years are some of the benefits of intrapreneurship? I know I can name a few, but what would you say are some benefits from being in that role?
Well, I think, first of all, it's a high-risk role, and you got to make sure that it's fully empowered. So if you're trying to build something, and maybe you're in the marketing, here's a great example. You could be in the marketing department, and your company really doesn't have e-commerce really figured out. They got a good website. It's SEO optimized. So when people are searching for whatever it is the company makes, they can find it in the listings. So that when people come there, they can easily find, all of the recent press releases. So an investor could come and look and see all the information on the company really quick. So it's a really good website and it does all that. But it really hasn't really done a very good job on e-commerce. Contact us if you'd like to buy something. Oh, yeah. Man, how 1999 of you. So you as an entrepreneur say, hey, you go to your boss and say, I'd like to build the e-commerce for us. I'm going to need a couple people and I'm going to need a budget. And then I'm going to need to be left alone, but I am going to give you checkpoints. But I don't want to be crushed by the regular part of sales. So step one, when you come to present it, make sure you're going to be empowered. Step 2, make sure you can do it, because otherwise you're going to spend a lot of money, get nothing done, and then they're going to be like this is pointless. And you went from valued employee to the person that just blew a lot of money.
Right. You don't want to be that guy, yeah.
And yeah. So now you're done. Goodbye. So the third part of it is saying, hey, and if I'm successful with this and we're bringing value to the company, can we talk about a bonus structure or a few more stock options? Because I intend to put uncommon hours of work into this. And I know you're paying me a salary, but this is a really big project. It's really going to add value to the company, building our e-commerce existence, which is more than just the website. It's logistics, it's shipping, it's getting the orders in. So you're building a whole sales channel to lift up the company's total revenue and valuation and momentum. So be sure you can do it. Be sure you're empowered. Be sure you've got proper budget, and then negotiate, your bonus. And if they're only going to give you a modest bonus, maybe that time where you go to start your own company isn't 10 years away. Maybe it's a year and a half away, because you get this done for the company and you say, hey, I just learned something. I got the benefit of this. And you tell them to leave. That's happened. But for entrepreneurs, the number one thing is, I think more than anything else, you have to be empowered. But number 2 is, part of being empowered is getting left alone, so that everybody at the company was like, we've always done it this way, leaves you alone. It's not easy. You got to have a sponsor in that company that believes in it. In this case, a VP of sales or somebody that says, you know what, e-commerce could be a great sales channel for us. I think let's give this person an opportunity. Let's give her the opportunity to go build this. Let's leave her alone, give her some resources. Let's see if we can build an e-commerce channel.
I like that. What I took from that, what you said, in my mind, to extract a little bit of that content is, as an entrepreneur, unlike a regular employee, you get to take initiative, provide value in an area where maybe it doesn't exist. You can request a different type of a working model for yourself, where you can build a team and maybe have a bonus and maybe have that. And then you feel a fulfillment of having created something that didn't exist. You took it from A to Z. But as an entrepreneur trying to bring value to the company overall, it's a very non-linear approach to the way that your routine is as a regular employee. And I love that you gave us some tips on how to do it and how to approach it, which is phenomenal. Tom, the benefit of being an entrepreneur, there's a lot of delayed gratification, and my last question for you is, entrepreneurs tend to work like entrepreneurs, right? Entrepreneurs put in late hours. They put in a lot of work, right? I'm probably the only one that works 4 hours a day here with Patrick out of everybody. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. But I think, look at Tom's face.
After dinner?
Right. But entrepreneurs work like entrepreneurs, but there's a delayed gratification component. Patrick has treated me very well over the years. I've traveled the world. I lived a life that I never thought would be possible. But Tom, how do you stay motivated, keep your family intact? And this is directly to yourself. I've seen you work late hours, have an entrepreneur mindset, care for the company, but you're still building a family. You're still balancing, your spiritual, your financial, your family life. You're a father, you're a husband. You still have things to do, but you're working. Some people would say you're slaving away. I don't believe in that concept, but we are working our butts off for an entrepreneur, for a vision. How do you keep yourself and your identity intact as an entrepreneur?
Well, there's a lot there. And, I think basically, if I was not able, first of all, the BizDoc Babe is a huge partner. So I have a great wife, and we're completely aligned on our girls. And so they're getting a lot of love, discipline and structure from us. Love, their unconditional love. Discipline, we're giving them boundaries, and we're helping them set time boundaries for studying, and then structure. You can depend on this because we will be home here, we're having dinner here, we're doing this. We give them structure they can depend on. So I've got a great partner that we can make all that happen. My part of it is be available at those times and to meter my day. I have touch points with them every day, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, even if I'm out of town. And that touch points is structured, telling them I'm always there even if I'm not there present, because I'm at the Florida office for 3 days for this week. There's a lot of important things doing. Now, fortunately, unlike California, it's only an hour different from Dallas, so it's easy to manage. But there's, if you just head down your business and you wake up at 10 p.m., never mind your family. If you haven't talked to your friends that day, you're out of balance. You have to find a way to find balance. And work-life balance does not mean 5 p.m. It might mean 5 p.m. for some people. For my wife, work-life balance, it is tough to measure because she teaches children that have special challenges at a wonderful school here in Dallas. And so when it's time for her to do, conferences with the parents, because the parents have plans at home so they can work with their children that have these special challenges at school, so there's alignment. She has to be early at the school for conferences with parents before they go to work in their jobs so that they've got the playbook on how to build up their son or daughter and to improve their condition. And so she measures those weeks, she meters her time. And so I think you can have fulfillment in what you do, but you got to look at your calendar and find out where are my touch points going to be? How am I going to do it? And it's not that if you're at work all the time, you never have a touch point, with your kids or your family. It's exam week for Bailey. And I've told her, call me when you're out of the exam and tell me what went. Because this is finals week. There's big exams for her. These are big things. It's not a normal day. So I'm going to take 5 minutes each day this week to chat with her very briefly. Now, I can't do that every single week and break out of meetings and stuff. But this week for finals, she needs to know I'm there and giving the encouragement. And we both know how big this week is for her. Same thing. She knows at the end of the month, hey, it's closeout for businesses that Daddy works with. Closeout is important. Got to close the month or close the month and the quarter. So work-life balance is what you make of it so that you're effective with the relationships in your life. And, people get all wound up on this work-life balance thing. Look, if you don't want to work for an entrepreneur and work those hours, don't. If you can't do that psychologically or emotionally, don't. Work at a job where you have a more structured set of hours. Know who you are, because there have been people you and I have known, Mario, that just can't work for an entrepreneur. Right. They're not bad people. They're just not wired for it. And they have to go off and do other things. Other people we've hired, it works great. They're inspired, they drive, they push hard, and it's all good. So, there's all kinds of different animals, and you got to have the right ones.
I love it. You said the communication with your partner. So if you have somebody out there communicating out there, availability, and regarding that availability, making the balance. So it's not about finding balance, about you got to make the balance. Having that awareness and knowing yourself is key. And then you also have, the balance equals effectiveness, you said. But I think that what I take from that, if you find a way to balance yourself and you know who you are, you don't lose yourself, you don't lose that identity, and you can come in and give it your all every day. Phenomenal response. I took so much away from that. Last thing, Tom, you've said this repeatedly. Leaving people better than you found them. And I want to end on that. You kind of touched on it a little earlier, and that's part of the fulfillment that you get. But as entrepreneurs, we're leaving our teams, we're leaving our company, we're leaving the CEO we're with at the moment better than we found them on a daily basis. Why does that quote mean so much to you? And how do you want people to take that and process that as they wrap up this episode of Intrapreneurship?
Well, for me, it came from my faith. Jesus Christ, made it his mission to leave these 12 men better than he found them so that they could carry on his mission and, spread his message of, love, peace, service, brotherhood, those things that are tenets of the faith. And I looked at that and I was like, wow, you can do that anywhere you are, but how many people don't? And so I committed myself. I'm going to leave you better than I found you. I'm going to leave you maybe with more discipline, or I'm going to leave you with an even stronger set of skills because I recognize the skills you have as you come in, and I'm going to water that plant to let it grow because you've got crazy marketing skills. I'm just going to let them grow because guess what? You're bringing them to the company and we're all going to win with them. So sometimes I lead people with skills. Some people I lead people with discipline. Some people I lead people with their management. Some people I just encourage them and make them feel like a valued human being because they weren't working at organizations that made them feel that way. And so when I say I'm going to leave you better than I found you, I look at each person and I say, how can I leave this person better than I found them? And make them more active and more capable for the company than they walked in. Because that's what we paid them for. We're going to pay you to be a marketing person, to make our marketing more effective, get more momentum, and more value to the company. Okay, this is who we hired. How do I leave you better than I found you? Give them encouragement that lifts their spirit. Give them room to show their skills and grow their skills. Give them counseling and help them be a good manager and a good leader of the marketing department. Whatever it is, I look at that and say, okay, how am I going to leave this person better than I found them? And I get, the principles I get looking at how Christ left 12 very different people better than he found them. And he engaged with each one a little differently. And I was just always inspired by that model. And, I've been able to apply it in my business life, and even with people of different faiths. This isn't something where I'm just working with people that have my same faith. It's not. I've worked with the diversity of people, but I can still take those principles and read them better than I found them because the goal wasn't necessarily to have a debate over faiths. The goal is to add momentum and value to the company. That's what we're both here to do.
I love it. Well, I hope you feel a little fulfilled today, a little bit more with this entrepreneurship topic, because you definitely left me better than you found me this morning. And I hope that we left our audience a little better. And if you're watching this, I hope that you left a little bit better, having listened to somebody who's had this type of career and this type of background. Tom, where can people connect with you right after this? And where can people go and find out a little bit more about the BizDoc?
Well, my website, tomellsworth.com, is out there. But the best place is probably, there's these, all the playlists with my case studies are available, Valuetainment. And then there's a Valuetainment sub-channel, Valuetainment Economics. It's a playlist in there that's got all the case studies on that. We've got this video that's out there. And then at Tom Ellsworth is my Twitter. And then tomellsworth.com is my website. But they're all connected. They all point back to each other. So you can find.
Love it. Tom, I really appreciate your friendship. I appreciate working with you. I appreciate you always guiding us. At the same time, for your time. I know you're very busy out there. I look forward to maybe connecting again on a separate topic. But I'll see you soon because we have a lot of projects and a lot of things we're working on right now. Thank you for your time, Tom.
Mario, thank you too. I really enjoy this entrepreneurship series you're doing. And thank you for making me a part of it this week.
Appreciate it. Talk to you soon. I don't know about you, but I took away so much content. It's not even funny. I have so many notes, page filled with notes from Tom. Phenomenal. I hope you enjoyed this change to the Intrapreneur series that I've been doing from the how-tos and listed goals and all that. But I wanted to pick a brain. And this is a kind of interview where I'm probably going to go back and watch it myself. Tom really just unleashed so much of that entrepreneur mindset. If you haven't checked out the case studies, check them out here. If you haven't looked at my other episodes on entrepreneurship, check them out here. Subscribe to the channel. If you like this format, let me know. Comment down here. Go follow Tom. And we'll see you online back at Valuetainment.